as usual, we're just kind of waiting a few moments to get connected to all different live streams. And so in the meantime, just hold tight. And we're really excited for our guest today, Stephen Trotter. As always, we're watching the monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions during the episode or any comments you want us to bring up, please throw them in there. I'll be monitoring that chat. And we'll get started once all our streaming services are lined up. Okay, I see it's starting to work. So we're good for LinkedIn, Stephen. That's going to work. Okay, so all right. Okay, so we're live, so we'll get started. Welcome back to Coach Connect. Here's where we explore the stories and strategies and insights from trailblazers who are transforming the world of coaching and well-being. What drives their success and what fuels their passion for helping others. We're here to uncover their secrets and share them with you. This show is brought to you by Vibely.io, the all-in-one coaching platform designed to empower coaches with tools, resources, and support they need to thrive and help their clients achieve meaningful, long-lasting growth. I'm Dr. Diego Salinas, your guide on this journey. As a neuroscientist, physician, and health coach, and co-founder of Vibely, I'm committed to celebrating the incredible work of coaches everywhere and helping them unlock their full potential. So together, let's dive deep into what makes coaching a powerful force of change. Having my guest today, Stephen Trotter. He's a nationally recognized well-being strategist, educator, and founder of Globetrotter Wellness Solutions. Through bold strategy, immersive education, and transformative experiences, Stephen helps organizations build coaching cultures where people feel supported, connected, and empowered to grow. With more than 20 years of leadership across universities, health clubs, and corporate wellness, Stephen has become a trusted voice in the coaching identity, well-being leadership, and creating environments where people can truly thrive. He's the author of Fitness Facility Management and creator of learning platforms such as collegiatefitness.com and fitnessfacilitymanagement.com. Stephen teaches as an adjunct professor at the Coastal Carolina Community College and serves as the director of well-being at East Carolina University, where he leads institution-wide strategies that embed health coaching, belonging, and coaching culture across the campus. Whether working with students, leaders, or seasoned coaches, his mission is simple: to take people to a place where they can't get on their own and help them unlock what's possible. Stephen, welcome to the episode. Really happy to have you on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so I know I read your bio, but kind of usually to start off with a little bit of that origin story, kind of what got you involved in coaching or kind of helping others and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, my kind of journey in the health and wellness and fitness space actually started as a kid, and I'm first generation college student. Now, by the time I was deciding what I wanted to do in my career, I thought I needed to go for a job that would be stable and paid me well, and so I was going to go to school for pharmacy. But at the same time, in high school, I grew up a kid with overweight, obesity, and the first place that I went to, and when I turned 16, I got my driver's license. I went to the Gold's Gym in my hometown and signed up for a 2-year membership, and ended up losing about 120 pounds between my sophomore and senior year of high school. And at the same time, I was doing an internship in clinical pharmacy. I was working part time as a drug clerk at retail, and realized that I hated both of those jobs. But I loved the stuff I was doing at the gym, and I was doing an internship at the Golds and actually trained. So long story short, as I became a fitness instructor, I started teaching spin classes as a senior in high school. And so I've last month marks 23 years of teaching fitness classes, which is wild to think. But went to college, and I was still going to try to go to pharmacy school, and I hated every class that I was taking. And I had gotten a job as a fitness instructor and ended up being a personal trainer at the college that I went to undergrad at, and kind of fell in love with my real passion and kind of felt my calling, and ended up kind of being more innovative and being hopefully more on the prevention side of things than so much as the treatment side, is the way I look at it. And pharmacology is important, pharmacy is important, but hopefully I like to think what I do helps people stay out of pharmacies, which is the irony of like what I was originally going to become a career. But spent most of my time in like higher education and working in health clubs, and really throughout the years just realized that like we try to overcomplicate things in the
Mm.
health and wellness space, and really it's about those small steps. And I feel like everything that I do, I've had a lot of jobs in life, and I'll probably still have a lot of jobs down the road, but it all comes back to that mission. And it's like, no matter what I do, my goal is to take people to a place they can't get on their own. And I think that job is just a vehicle for that passion.
Yeah, so I remember we mentioned at the conference and the night before in the hotel lobby. That phrase really stuck with me, right? That we talk about our backgrounds and different roles we've had and visions of the future, but what is that underlying core that drives you, right? What's the through line there that kind of puts you there? And it seems like from personal training to coaching, teaching, it's really supporting others to get to that next level that maybe by themselves may not be as attainable as with a community or with that right support.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like it's so like I said earlier, it's just we try to overcomplicate things, and really it's like those small actionable steps. And with my back, like a lot of, I don't work with people one on one that much anymore, but really what I've kind of found my passion as I work in the industry. I do a lot of work in the credentialing side of things and helping shape programs and certifications and things in the space. And I really like that allows me to still reach those passions. And back in the day, earlier in my career, I trained people to become fitness instructors and trainers and health coaches, and now I get to help other people learn how to train that. So it just kind of takes place differently, and it's like this journey called life. It just shapes you in different ways. And I don't know, I feel like when opportunities present themselves, like say yes to more things, but
Yeah.
realize that when you say yes, you're saying no to something else.
Everything's opportunity cost in life, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, see, it sounds like the kind of we share a similar journey where we really enjoy what we're doing at the one-on-one level. And to me, I'm also kind of love teaching. So, oh, I want to help others do that too. And then let things about systemic change there. So the kind of more you enjoy something at the grassroots kind of boots on the ground, the more like how can I leverage what I've learned, help others do the same thing, so we can create a global task force that can enact locally.
Yeah. And I think that's like so important too. Like I think about the times that I'm in meetings when people are trying to make decisions. I'm like, none of us we're not working with the end user right now. Like we're in here making decisions in this vacuum or whatever it is. But how many of you in this room are seeing students on a daily basis or seeing employees? How many of you are still managing employees? You're telling people how to develop employee well-being programs. You don't manage people? No, I don't think so. Like, it's like you've got to have that boots on the ground to make that systemic change too. And that's where like I get so frustrated when like people make decisions in the ivory tower without even considering like what is actually happening on the ground. And it's like I do a lot of work and I'm passionate about marketing too. And I watched this reel, and when I was presenting in San Diego at the Athletic Business Conference, my colleague and I, we put it in this clip, and it's like the millennial marketing method is dead. And it's like if you're
Mm,
still trying to like target market like we did 5, 10 years ago, then it's not going to work.
yeah. So speaking of things evolving, I think it's a great kind of call it to the title episode, right? That we as people in the world, but especially professionals, have to keep up to date with the changes, right? So we often talk about changes in science we got to keep up with, right, and research, right, to do our skill set, but also if we're not here with the market trends, how to get out there, no one's going to get to experience that wonderful science that we're trying to show. So, and that's kind of your background, your passion, Stephen, like how to get the word of what we're doing. So I'll give you some Florida kind of may say, what's maybe the traditional way you said people have been doing it, and where do you see the industry really changing? What should coaches really understand about how to explain what they do well and effectively at a bigger scale?
Yeah, I think for one, it's like understanding what it is we actually do. And I've launched health coaching programs at colleges a couple different times. And I think first, like having that conversation and even partnering up. I remember when we launched it at one of the institutions I worked at, and the my team member who directly led the program would do kind of a presentation tour with one of our outreach counselors from the counseling center to explain to people what the difference between clinical counseling and health coaching is, and like
Mm,
understanding those differences. But even with health coaching, the health coaching space has changed as far as like what we think of health coaching, and many people still think that health coaching is only, for lack of better words, high ticket one-on-one coaching, and that is still a piece of it. But health coaching takes place in so many different types of roles, and it's like understanding what is coaching and what is advising and what is training. And it's like when you look at those, like when you're thinking about coaching, you're there realizing that the individual and that the people are the expert in their own lives, that you're there, you're helping them co-create a plan that's based on their personal values and their wants and their wishes and what their needs are. And that advising is the way I think of it. It's like it's an academic advisor where you're advising them to go a certain way if they're still wanting to meet that goal. So it's a little bit more of that control. And if you're thinking about training or even personal training, you're literally teaching people, you're telling them what to do, showing them what to do. And then giving them feedback on their performance. So that health coaching piece is really that walking alongside, which I'm sure many of everyone listening to this right now or later understands that. But I think even within that, going back to, it's so much more than that one-on-one high ticket coaching. And the way I think of like,
Mm.
the way I think of that is that we have to think of it kind of like how sales and marketing work. And if we look at like a marketing funnel or sales funnel, everything we do, you're either trying to create awareness and interest, like at the very top of the funnel, that's the lightest part. So it's like the lowest effort from you, but also it's the to the masses, right? It's everyone in kind of a behavior change spectrum, not just action or preparation, like maybe we're getting in front of pre-contemplation, right? And
Hmm.
then so we need to be doing stuff like that, whether it's like short form video content or whether it's just blogs or just posts on social media. What is it that free stuff that you can put out that's, for lack of better words, advice or kind of things to know about behavior change and positive behavior change? And then we have like, as you come down the funnel, it's creating, desire and action. So your short forms are now a little bit more long form content on YouTube or whatever, because somebody has to be at least interested enough to watch more than 60 seconds. Everyone has short attention spans, right? But you can
Right.
teach people so much, and you not only teach, but you can help shape behavior. And then
Mm.
eventually, as that funnel narrows, it's less people going to do that, but it takes a little bit more effort for you to put that together, all the way down to that group coaching or that high ticket coaching. And I think that that's one piece of it, is as health coaches and professionals in the industry, you have to realize that it doesn't have to be done the same way that it's always been done. And if you're only going to offer high ticket coaching, that's cool. And if you know that's your niche and that's all you want to do and you're doing it successfully, keep at it. But I think I had a conversation with a colleague yesterday where I was just like, we were talking about a marketing effort. And I'm like, here's the problem. I was like, you are not your target audience. And that is what people do. Like, so many people target to themselves. Like, you're not the one buying this. Like, it's literally like going up to a stranger on the street and proposing to them, breaking out a diamond and saying, will you marry me? They don't even know your name. They don't know who you are. Now, on rare occasions, depending on where you're at, that may work. But it's a process. And it's like
Ooh.
we think behavior is just like a light switch. You just flip it on and it does, and it works. But like, even think back to like getting in the car. I'm assuming most people, when they get in the car, they put on their seatbelt without even thinking about it. But at some point you had to make a conscious effort to put the seatbelt on. And even before
Right.
then, you had to learn why it's important to wear a seatbelt and what the risk and the rewards are wearing a seatbelt. And when you're thinking about risk, not to go off on a tangent, but like, yeah, you could just sit at home and not leave your house ever and not get in the car. And you're probably not going to get in a car accident, but then the risk reward is like you're going to be socially isolated. You're going to miss out on so opportunity versus, you're really just doing a transfer of risk or mitigating it by wearing a seatbelt. And
Hmm.
that, I think it's so hard for people who do this every day to realize that people don't think like us. And I see that shape so much. I like, one of the things that I do is I teach a personal health and wellness class at a college, and I teach multiple sections a semester. It's an 8-week course. And some people are going into the industry, some people are, it's a general education class, everyone has to take it, right? And what I've realized over the last probably 2.5 years, I've taught this class for almost 10 years. And what I've realized over the last 2.5 years is it's really a behavior change class. And I've kind of shaped it where that it's health coaching. Like, what we're doing is like changing behavior, but it's not an old school PE and health class that we would have taken in high school. It's like I'm allowing the students on day one to take a self-assessment, figure out what's important to them. They set goals, and it's an experiential module through alcohol and other drugs, through stress management, through psychological health, through fitness, nutrition, sleep, environmental health. And there's so many, like, I get so much gratitude out of teaching that, because, and I think when we were in San Diego, we were talking like, just in this semester alone, I've had multiple students stop drinking, multiple students stop smoking, like someone go back into talk therapy, and like people process things. And it's so like, there's one of the modules I literally have to like get myself together to grade it and everything, because I'm like, I get so emotional reading their reflections, because I'm
Mm.
realizing what may seem so simple to us is so powerful. And it's like, in San Diego, at the Health Wellbeing Coaching Conference, I talked about like basic needs, and we're trying to get people to do all this complicated stuff. But if someone has food insecurity, they're more concerned about get it where their next meal's coming from. Who cares if they're not doing 150 minutes of exercise in the week?
Right.
They're hungry. So that was all over the place. But I get so passionate about about that.
I love it. There's so much there to unpack. So and there's just kind of two main categories, like behavior
Yeah.
change and marketing. Kind of want to talk about both. So this is perfect guest here, right? So let me reflect a few of those things there. As you can tell, I loved your quote about they're trying to sell to themselves, right? And like, and here's the reality: we do have a personal experience that maybe led us to coaching or maybe led us to these fields. So we have an idea of what others might think. But what's the saying? Part of my French here, but when you assume, we make an ass out of you and me, right? Like we assume what our clients may want. And I was talking to some new recent graduates last night, and we're talking about marketing and kind of like your ideal client. I'm like, listen, your job right now is to listen. If you don't know who your client is, what they want, ask them questions, right? And not what you think you might need, and then just use that same language and don't overcomplicate it. If they say they want some more time with their kids, don't say, I help you optimize your circadian rhythm for maximum. I help people spend time with their kids after work, right? And this, and I think you're right. When you learn anything, especially with coaching, it becomes so innate to you. You don't think about the learning process. And here's maybe another analogy I can that's kind of mine, Stephen. I rollerblade. I enjoy rollerblading as my kind of hobby, right? And I was getting ice cream one day, and someone said, "Well, what if you fall?" I was like, "Oh, you're definitely gonna fall." I'm like, "You fell when you learned to walk." But you're a kid, you just get back up, right? It takes kids years to reliably walk well. They start at age one, but it takes until you're 4 or 5, your knees are full of bruises, right? And so, but I think when you're younger, that doesn't slow us down. But when you learn something, it's hard to almost unlearn or unsee that. So I think it's good for each coach to remember that massive aha we all had when we went through coach training or first got coached, and what it was on one side of the experience versus the other. And I think a lot of people have a hard time explaining this experience, because how to explain swimming in the ocean? Until you swim in the ocean, it's hard to really feel that power, or climbing a mountain, right? Um, so I think that like I'm gonna go back to your marketing funnel thing. This continuum between coaching, advising, and training, I think, is an interesting one, right? Because people come to coaching from that training or advising model, because we want to help others, and we learn actually the better way, instead of telling them what to do, to do more sit-ups, is to listen to them and meet them where they're at. Right, to your point, if someone is food insecure, don't start talking about self-actualization, right? um, Yet, because people don't, maybe who have experienced coaching, don't know what it is, sometimes we do use some training or things that provide value to our audience to bring on that funnel, right? So you can start off as one, maybe you are talking about, the example I always give is for pediatrics, sleep train for kids, lecture on that. Parents want to know how to help the kids sleep so they can sleep too. Okay, they came for that reason. They're seeing, and I'm learning what other problems do parents have. And to the point, I coach parents, and I'm not a parent. I'm a pediatrician. And so I have some knowledge there, but I myself don't have kids. And that's so, again, the idea of I love that you don't necessarily coach your like what you would do. You don't know the experience. And we have to really walk clients to get there. And sometimes saying from zero to spending 4 figures on something is a big gap for people who don't know. And we have to really, I think, get more creative in how we lead people to discovery on their own.
Yeah, and that's like people have to realize their value, or the value in it and the value proposition throughout that process, right? Because if we're talking about like high ticket coaching or whatever, like people will pay for value. And this is I don't think our purpose today is to talk about how to price your coaching packages, but like people will pay for value. That's the bottom line. But you have to help them realize the value in the service that you're offering and the value in it. And when you're thinking about like, I was reading a reflection the other day for one of my students, and it was like, I experienced X, Y, and Z as a child. And now that I am pregnant right now, I'm about to have a child. Like, these are my goals, and this is what's important to me, that I want to give this best possible life to my kid as this kid grows up. And it's like understanding the value in it, and just like the people realize like it's about, to your point, it's like helping coaches need to realize what's important to the client or the groups of people that they're working with, and tapping into that because at the end of the day, we're there. And some people, they don't want coaching, they just want well-being support, and maybe
Mm,
that's just like reminders, or push notifications of like, in a and I'm thinking about like even group coaching could be like, I would call it like a 30-day transformation or 6-week transformation program, where at the end of the day you're just there for support, and maybe that person, the people in your group, is not even going to meet with you one-on-one, but they just need that motivation to kind of keep going. And I think that, like, the other thing too is we hear this all the time. It's like mind over matter, mind over matter. And I'm like, really? And I've done a lot of like thinking about this recently, the irony of like thinking about mind over matter. But really, like, your mind, I want to go off on like maybe a unpopular opinion. Your mind is actually not that strong. Your body is
mm,
stronger, and your
mm.
body will do things that your mind would talk you out of. Because yes, you can hype yourself up, but think about the inner saboteur. Think about all the things that your mind will tell you. You're not good enough to do this. You're not, like, we are very creative people, and people are like, oh, I'm boring. No, you're a storyteller. You are very creative because you tell yourself all kinds of crazy stuff all the time that's not actually true. And then you believe it. You're that inspirational that you believe your own crazy stories you tell yourself. But at
Mm.
the end of the day, it's like your body, like when you look at like these acts of like, when you see people deadlifting a car off someone because someone's trapped underneath it. Like, if you said, I think I can pick up this car, your mind's going to be like, nah, you can't do that. But in the moment, your body's going to do it. So it's, you may say mind over matter, but at the end of the day, your body is so much stronger than your mind will ever be, in my maybe unpopular opinion.
I like that. I like a little controversy here. It's funny to me. I view mind and body as the same thing, right? So when I see this in
Right.
mental and physical health, I was like, so it's all. But I think you are such a point that I mentioned a lot during my live demo is that we created software to help coaches get started, and so that was first the problem. Well, I don't know how to put compliance. I don't know how to schedule. Okay, did that. Reality, these people still get in their own way. I talked to a coach 2 weeks ago, spending 10 weeks working on our website. I was like, it's all the opportunity cost of not having a scheduling page. Just have a scheduling page to start off with, right? Or it's imposters. Why me? Why? And so we do get in our own way. And what I found is helpful is if you're a coach and you feel stuck, find a colleague who's also stuck. Coach each other. We tend to help others
Yes.
more than ourselves. And I think the reality is any progression in growth is going to have things that are uncomfortable. It's a zone of proximal development, right? In order for me to rollerblade, I had to fall sometimes and get back up, right? Any growth is going to be uncomfortable. So maybe I'll throw an analogy from medical school. You go to medical school and then in residency, day one, you do not feel like you know what you're doing. You're like, I learned in theory Tylenol, but like the dose, the timing, the frequency, like is I like you feel in some ways unprepared. And I thought, well, listen, you're prepared to now take the next step in learning. And so you're going to start again. So if it's your first time getting out there, doing an elevator speech, doing a presentation, yeah, you're gonna fight it. You're gonna find reasons why not me. And another quote, maybe I can tag along here, Stephen, is sometimes you gotta jump to grow wings, right? You gotta let your body
Yeah.
kind
You'll
of
learn
do
how to
that to
fly. Yeah.
you'll learn how to fly, right? Like, and I think when I talk, one thing I've found resonating with coaches, I'm curious your thoughts here is I've come to this conclusion, guys, we already know what to do. It's like our clients. When you have an outcome goal, forget out the outcome and make it a process goal and you learn along the way. So many coaches want to know A to Z before they start their coaching practice. I'm like, would you do the same thing with your clients, have a plan for next 2 years and they're never going to deviate from it? No, you're going to try something, learn, try again. So in one sense, we preach this process all day long, but I don't see a lot of coaches always taking that or being as proactive in their own their own field, their own kind of well-being or financial well-being there.
Yeah. And I think I think like and I'm glad you said it that way, because a lot of times I think like, I'll use this example. If define the outcome, but be open to the journey to get there. And so, like, I teach a behavioral change class, or behavioral coaching class too. But I think of like my favorite place in the U.S. is San Diego, hands down, no ifs, ands, or buts. So I'm like, if I'm based on the East Coast, so I tell all the students, or anytime I do workshops, I'm like, if we're gonna all leave tomorrow, and our goal is we need to be in San Diego for 2 weeks, and we're gonna meet at my favorite taco spot in San Diego in 2 weeks, figure out how to get there, right? And like, each of you are going to take a different route. And some people might jump on a plane, fly there, and then spend 2 weeks in San Diego before we meet up. Or some people might take a southern route, stop in Louisiana, stop in Austin, spend more time in places than others. But like, understand that, like, be open to the journey. And I'm all into, like, I love like manifestation and setting those like intentions, but you have to be open to what the universe puts in front of you and taking those opportunities that process piece will change. And if you try to control the process, you are putting energy and effort, you're depleting your energy and effort to places that it's not needed. Because if you're so
Mm.
worried about trying to control all 57 steps throughout that 2-year plan, then you're missing the entire point. It's like, set those process goals, but be open to the universe's way of helping you get to those steps, because it's going to look different. You're going to throw that rope across the river, and it's not going to land in a straight line.
Yeah. The it's funny about that metaphor too, because I use something similar to that when I work with my clients about acceptance. I know you and I've mentioned this word acceptance before. And I think that word can be very loaded, right? People say, "Oh, accept." I'm like, listen, to me in coaching, acceptance is not that you're renouncing to it or you condone it or you don't. You're like, well, it is what it is. I say acceptance is a starting point on your GPS.
Yes.
Right. So if we're going to go to San Diego, I have to accept, am I coming from Washington State or Washington, D.C. or Miami, Florida? Right. Like you just have to accept that in order to get to wherever it is to go. I may not want to be in Florida or in D.C. or in wherever it is, but without accepting that, the GPS is like, oh, I can't help you get there unless I know where you're starting from. And so acceptance is just accepting the reality of it, and doesn't mean that you are condoning it, laying down to it. It's just your starting point on your GPS. And I did a road trip actually a few years ago, went from Miami, California, San Diego, up. And yeah, I knew in general I was gonna take I-10 West, but like, when am I gonna get gas? Am I gonna get tired? How long? That is a journey, and that's what you really learn. There's last thing I'll say before I give you some space here, Stephen, is you remind me of saying in Spanish that I really enjoy. My mom always says, "El camino se hace andando." The road is created from walking. And I think a lot of coaches want, the boards to do it for us, someone else to do it for us, someone to lay that path. But you walking is what creates new paths. Like you have to be actionable to take from acceptance to now where you want to go.
Yeah, it's that it reminds me of, like, so in the class that I just finished teaching, my health and wellness class, I asked students in their final reflection to share some advice of what they would tell students in future kind of cohorts. And I love the, like, fact, and we had talked about acceptance last time, but multiple people talked about acceptance. And one of the pieces of advice that a student had given is like, I think it was something around like, my advice is simple: be honest with yourself in the reflections, and because that's where real growth happens. And it was like, the student was saying, like, don't just write what sounds good, write what is true about your habits, and don't be afraid to laugh at yourself along the way. um, and like, it's I think I had actually copied one of the quotes out to use, and it was like, if you realize that your stress levels are sky high, your sleep schedule is a disaster, your diet looks like that it was designed by a 5-year old, that's okay. And it's like, the accepting where you're at so you know where to go, because it's that starting point. Just like you said, it's like, you've got to know where you're starting, because otherwise you're just going to be floating around in a circle and maybe not going anywhere.
Yeah. And I think that kind of has that acceptance. And the other skill set is self compassion and kind of forgiveness, right? That, like, I'll give you my example for me. I don't know why it took me this long because, well, we're all blind to our own patterns, right? But realizing my disorganization, I'm like, oh, of course I need ADHD. I'm like, oh, it's a little bit messy. Yeah, because I have this final coming up or I have this coming. I'm like, this has been a pattern I've always been saying forever. I have people friends who have finals and have work deadlines and they don't get the day before disorganized the way I do. I'm like, oh, okay. And then for a while, I realized how much I was fighting that, right? If I accept it, doesn't mean that I'm giving an excuse. This is who I am. No, it's just saying, oh, I recognize I may have these tendencies. And that acceptance can be hard for our clients at first, or even for us. But it has to be with compassion. And then that compassion helps us get back up when we lean back towards those tendencies we're trying to work against, right? Because we might have to
Yeah.
pull back to our home base. And it takes a lot of acceptance, courage, commitment, compassion to then kind of retry again. And Stephen, I'm curious, like, we're talking about knowing yourself here and kind of our own what drives us. How do we because you're kind of marketing expert, a lot of coaches have questions. How do we explore this stuff? Like, get back to kind of marketing thing. How to explain to clients like what we're doing, or how we can really take our aligned values and be in the world that way that like makes a difference, right? Kind of go back to the earlier part of the conversation, how things are changing for coaches and their messaging and marketing for next year.
Yeah, I think that first you have to, whether you're new to coaching or even if you've been coaching for a while, go back to that why you exist question as yourself and thinking about what are your, I always say it comes back to your own personal values, your mission, vision, and values, because that you have to have that concrete, you have to have that concrete and well understood for yourself as a coach or a mentor, whatever role it is you play, to be able to explain what you do to others and sell the product that you're selling. And you have to for one, if you understand your purpose and your value, and take for example how I said that my personal mission is to take people to a place that they can't get on their own, that be fall in love with that mission and that why you exist, but don't fall in love with the job, because that job will
Mm,
change. And so many people get attached to the job, and that's where I see, like, not only coaches but anybody in any profession, where they realize that if they're not thinking, even think about college professors. If you refuse to do any, if you refused 8 years ago to do any type of online hybrid or anything like that, you could have probably got away with it. But then when the pandemonium times hit, you had to figure out how to do it, right? And like we get stuck in this way that how we were taught to do it is the only way that we can do it before. If you don't change your business model to meet the needs of your clients, then you're not going to have a business. That's the bottom line, because no one will need your services. And that, I mean, literally that's the bottom line. But if that's what you love, if you love this piece of it, if you love that job, it's not, for one, it's not going to love you back. And that's where like I get,
mm,
like I do a lot of like employee well-being and employee engagement workshops and so forth. And I'm like, the first thing I tell people is do not love your job. It will not love you back. And what I mean by that is if your goal is to empower, coach, lead, train, whatever it is, right? Like, or even I'll say, like, I'll use myself as an example. My personal mission again is to take people to a place they can't get on their own. And that's what I love. But if I fall in love with me loving my job is like me loving this camera that I'm looking at right now, right? That sounds insane, and it would be like me expecting this camera to love me back. It's an inanimate object, because at some point this camera is going to break, it's going to become outdated, it's going to no longer serve its purpose. But you know what I'll do? I'll buy a new one and I'll put a new one up, and then we're going to be right here again, right? And it's
mm.
like you have to understand why you exist and fall in love with your mission. Do not fall in love with your job, because if you expect your job to love you back, that is a you problem, not a job problem, because you were expecting something out of, you're expecting a feeling out of something that's not going to have a feeling. And people get so, oh my gosh, I'm like, like if you got hit by a bus, for people who work for organizations, if you get hit by a bus, your job would be posted the next day, unless you work in, higher education or government. It'd take about 6 weeks to get a job posted, but that's for another story for another day. But like,
Yeah,
people don't get that. And I think
yeah.
that you have to understand that first. But it's about falling in love with your mission to realize what it is that you help other people do, and understanding what, ask people what their pain points are when you're having those conversations. Because otherwise, if you don't know, it's like doing a software demo and telling and showcasing every piece of every benefit of the software, when really the person's like, I just need a way for my members to see the group fitness schedule. That's all I need. I don't care about anything else, but I need a better way for people to see my group fitness, to see the group fitness schedule. But if you're showing them everything, you're losing the point. Like, you're not giving them what they want, you're not giving them what they need, which is also a piece of it too, right? Because it's about giving people what they want, but also sliding in what they need with it too, because sometimes what people want and what people need may be a little different.
Oh, yeah.
um, and having those various versions of elevator speeches depending on who your audience is. And that's like in the sales world, right? We
Yes.
call that KYC, know your customer. You're not going to go speak to one type of customer the same way you would with a different type of customer, because you have to understand their language. I remember I had to do a presentation at a university years ago to a board of trustees, and it was about the state of mental health and what we're doing for well-being. And so I looked up every person's background, saw what industries that they worked in, and went in and framed the conversation so that in the language that they would understand what I was saying, instead of just, and it didn't come off as doom and gloom or anything. It actually, they understood we were speaking the same language. that was a long way for me to get to the
Mhm.
point. You have to speak the same language that your client is speaking, meaning that you need to be
Yeah.
understanding what they need and what they want.
Yeah, no, but the journey was so important, Steve. We learned a lot on the journey from that long road, right? And took a few notes here. One really hit me, and then we discussed this before at the conference where you said fall in love with your mission, not your job. And we discussed it before, but even as you said it again, I was saying that was my experience in residency. I do love helping others, but the job didn't love me back. Didn't care that I was not sleeping for 30 hours and all this stuff, right? But my passion, my mission never changed. It's also serve those who serve others, helping families, helping people get better so they can do more stuff. And so that's my thorough line. I think for coaches it's really important because the reality is, my mom's good saying. She goes, listen, every job you have is gonna have some parts that you don't like. There's a reason why people are paying you to do it. If it was so much fun, they would do it themselves. Right. So like I say, I love being an entrepreneur. I don't love my emails. That's part of what it is, right? I hear from a lot of coaches on our platform. Oh, dude, I love coaching. I don't love tech and marketing. I'm like, yeah, if you love tech or marketing more than coaching, you'd be an engineer or a marketer. Like,
Right.
that's kind of clear, right? So I think it's so important to have that love there, and that's what your audience is going to see, what drives them. Because even if you don't have a coach, I think people very intuitively know that you do your best when you're passionate, right? If you really love, like me, if I love my friends ask me for rollerblading advice. They know that I've gone the rabbit hole and bought every frame, wheel, bearing, thing, and this, and that's why I'm good at it, right? Like, because that passion drives you. So when someone says, "Man, I really want to help people who care for those who have caregiver burnout for parents with Alzheimer's," like they don't have to be the doctor or the neurologist, but they understand that experience. Wow, they get it. That passion is going to drive them. So I think that's going to really be what that helps that trust building between you and your potential leads, right? So following your passion, important for burnout, important for all the things we mentioned, right? And your value and kind of value prop you're doing. And I think
Yeah,
you
it
brought up
was.
another. Oh, sorry, go ahead,
Or go
Stephen.
ahead.
Good.
Yeah, I
No,
was
no,
gonna
good.
say, like, I was actually watching a Gary Vee video the other day on TikTok, and it was like, have your niche down, like have your actual niche, like know what your niche is, but be willing to talk openly about your passions because those passions are going to connect to people that you may not normally connect to, and then when they
Mm.
need that niche, they know who to come to.
Yes, I always talk about this. It's a great topic because the coaching says should I niche down or not, right? And for marketing, understand your clients, who they are, understand why you're niching. And my perspective is you can have multiple niches. I have multiple niches because know your audience, right? So my example, I was a pediatrician. I help healthcare workers with burnout and new families with parenthood. Like, why can't I do both those things? Now, when I talk to families, it's a very different conversation talking to a mom who just gave birth 6 weeks ago than to someone who's thinking about leaving an ER shift, right? Or residency. And so, even to the point of, you heard me talk at the conference on neuroscience and behavior change. I gave a lecture a few weeks ago to a group of neuroscientists about burnout. Man, was that a different presentation,
Yeah,
right? Like, and if you don't know that, this is your chance to learn that, right? So, here's a strategy I always to do for something marketing or lead generation. Like if you're the kind of person who does like teaching, does like give information, do a workshop or live event. And I say provide value to the audience. And I don't mean coaching value like family or loyalty, right? But I think there's two kind of broad categories I like to paint for new coaches. And please, Steve, let me know what your thoughts on this, right? One is like the value because you know the subject or the area that they think they want to know more information on, right? Example for me, hey, how to help your kids sleep train. Oh, that'd be great. I don't know how to do that, right? Or if you're a nutritionist, maybe do a little controversial, like why some veggies are worse for A1C. What? Yeah, sweet potatoes, right? Like, so one is on the subject matter, right? Someone say, well, I don't know. I've not, this is the first time I'm coaching. I came from finance. Well, you know about finance. Hey, you know behavior change. What, guys, right now, who any coach listening, January 1st, everyone wants what you're offering. They don't know what you're offering. So have a workshop, how to make your resolutions land through March. Oh, the solution is coaching, right? So one is that you know that subject matter, you're kind of giving them information you're looking for already. But the other category, and this is what we're saying to your story and your authentic self, is because you understand that population, their plight, their journey, et cetera, right? So I know executive coach who she works with, she's from abroad, and she has other executives who want to rise a company ladder in a new country, right? So I think that, and then when you do these events, ask people, hey, what brought you in today? Afterwards, what else would you like to know? And that's how you work on your elevator speech, your thing. When I first started, man, it was a mess, Steven. It was like, I do neuroscience. What do you want to know first? And then I'll answer back. And that software demo example, after doing so many for a year, I first start off every demo. What's important to you? It's like medicine. What you think is important to you, the provider, may not be what's important to them. And so the more you can just copy back what they said, that's the answer. And I can leave one more because you and I both talking multiple thoughts at one time. You say what they need versus what they want. In medicine, say everyone wants antibiotics, but not everyone needs antibiotics, right? So you kind of connect with them with what their wants are, or their, and then as that guide, that mix between support and giving resources, maybe not training, but giving resources, you can help them understand what they need or clarify that too, and really be part of that continuum. I'll pause there and with all my ideas. What do you think,
No,
Steve?
I love it. And it's like what really stuck out to me is like it shifts from transactional to transformational. And that's where like if you have to like because if it's just it can't just be prescriptive because there's no emotion to it, right? Like and I think that honestly that's key, right? In the world of AI where you can get a lot of information and people can have their own probably AI health coaches if they wanted to for free. Um, and it's like that human connection, your value, what you bring to the table is what a client is going to choose you over someone else or even like a bot online, right? And so it's moving in like because if we think about technology operates in the ideal environment and humans operate in real world environment. And so it's that shift that takes us from being transactional to transformational. And that's like I think that connection between that want and that need is that human connection piece because people want to feel like they're important, people want to feel valued, they want to feel that sense of belonging. And really I think that like I don't know as I think as we go into and when we were in San Diego I was talking about social isolation as being such a huge problem like on college campuses but in the world too, like we've seen even
Yeah.
like male loneliness for adult men and so forth. But like I think if one thing that you can tap into in 2026 is connection, like what is it that you can do to create space for connection and community, and just realize, and I'm guilty of this myself, where I do a lot of events and I host a lot of events and I try to prescribe like it being prescriptive of every detail, every moment this is going to happen. But if you just realize that like let's set a couple goals and then create space for people to create connection, that's where the magic happens. And I think that like going into 2026, if you're a coach or you're a mentor, whatever it is that you're doing, like how is it that you can create space that will bring up more community and more connection and that sense of belonging?
There's so much wisdom there, right? I talk market, but really is connection community. So I know the phrase community is medicine is being used, right? The famous Harvard study, the biggest predictor of longevity is the perceived quality of social connections. And you brought up something I think a lot of coaches I hear now in the conversation are really concerned about, AI and will AI replace us? And I have my predictions on this, but here's my perspective, giving look at medical history. If you look at medical history, we've tried to replace human connections with worksheets or information many times, right? AI is fantastic source of information, right? But I might have used this before in a different episode, but you ever seen someone smoke a cigarette? No one's ever gone, cancer, emphysema. I had no idea, right? None of my clients have been like, hey, you know what, Diego? I'm done with our sessions. I have ChatGPT now, right? Like once they're connected with you, they're not saying, well, good. I don't need to see you. They can't wait to see you. And I think when people, it's like social media. These things kind of they kind of not hijack. They take advantage of our social circuits, so they're alluring. But after an hour of social media, you feel kind of empty. You don't feel better, right? It's like eating junk food. You get a tummy ache. It feels good in the moment, but because satisfying a primal urge, but not really. And I think
Mm-hmm.
when you look at AI, and I mean, I think there's a place for AI coaching therapy. I think it's a supplementary good. Complementary good, not a
Yes.
supplementary good. And so, and maybe not everyone needs it every time to talk to someone, but I think people are getting really excited initially because for the first time, what does ChatGPT do? It reflects back to you first. Hey, sounds like you're having a really hard time. People don't normally do that. But here's what I say is that people are going to try this, and like many of the things, they're going to realize You cannot replace human connection with anything else. It is
Mhm.
irreplaceable. I'm not saying it's better, worse. It is just an irreplaceable tool, right? And we know it's such a powerful one. And so that's why I think workshops are great, or live events, because a few things. A, it lowers that energy to come to see you. You don't have to purchase a high ticket item or a free one-on-one call. Free one-on-one calls are great, but people don't always hop on and they go, man, I'm gonna be sold a thing I can't sell. What if I get too nervous and I say yes, and can I afford it? I don't even know what it costs. I don't know what it costs. I'm gonna hop on a call with you. Versus, hey, information session. I leave my camera on or off, have some lunch, right? And what I always do in my workshops is first create community. Where are you calling from? What brought you in today? Right? And then people start like it's seeing they're not alone, right? And then you learn from that. So that community, if you're not sure, just create support groups, right? Create space for people. And I love your point. You don't have to plan it out. The conference had space for us to hang out and just connect. And if you can create that and then people connect to you, and here's the reality, not everyone's going to connect to you. Your job in sales and marketing is not to land 100% of connections.
Yeah.
So your point is to get in the car. My mom says, no one's gonna knock on your door after you go on a date. You gotta go out in the world and see who vibes with you. And then what you're saying, your truth, your authenticity, your passion, but you're not given a chance to connect until you're there. So I think community and connection really is what the magic of coaching is. It's a big component plus the skills that we bring to that. So it's not just support, but it's this connection plus skill set really combined to a perfect package.
Yeah, and I think you hit that like so well. And I always like to say it's like people want to be for everyone, and like the bottom line is, if you think everyone is your customer, then no one is your customer. And it's like people don't realize that, and it's like they think that if someone doesn't like them or doesn't like their style, that they're failing. No, because there's plenty of other people who would. And if you were for everyone, could you meet the need of everyone? No. And like how would you, maybe you would be super financially successful, but what are you going to do with all that financial success? You're not going to be able to travel. You're not going to be able to live your life because you're seeing clients 24/7, 365, right? It's like you've got to realize, like, and yes, you can have multiple niches, but I think the bottom line is that you have to realize that if everyone is your customer, then no one is your customer. And to that point of like when we were thinking about connection and community and space, and I always like to say that formula, and you and I talked about it. I was being with someone, they're like, well, how do you do this? I'm like, honestly, it's part strategy, it's part magic, and it's part delusion. And that's like the most important part is the delusion, right?
I was going to ask you to actually. This is going to bring up Steve. Let's dive into that. Tell me your definition of. Yes, please dive a little deeper into the strategy versus magic versus delusion. I was hoping you'd bring that
Yeah.
up.
So here's the thing. So you have to have strategy. First, you've got to know yourself. You got to know what your strengths are. I'm a Gallup strengths coach, so I love strengths like base coaching, strengths. I do a lot of strengths coaching, presentations, workshops, and it's like do more of what you do. You should be doing more of what you naturally do well. Bottom line,
Yeah.
but knowing yourself. But that strategy is really about that. It's repeated. It's grounded techniques, right? And that's the part that when we talked earlier, when you're learning to rollerblade and or learning to walk. And I always use this like I'm an exercise physiologist by training, educational training. But I'm like, if you were to squat 305, 305 is a constant number, right? If you're squatting 305 pounds, it never gets easier, right? It is 305 pounds, but you get stronger, right? Because you're doing it over and over again. You're going double progressive overload and so forth. And it's like, it's never getting easier. It's not supposed
Yeah.
to. It's a set number. It's like rollerblading. Yeah, if I got on a rollerblade and we were going through, South Beach or whatever, you would be somewhere else and I'd be laying on the ground, probably with a broken body part, or I wouldn't even be able to sit up. But if I did it over and over and over, I could probably catch up with you, a little
I'd be
bit.
happy to
But
teach you.
right. And it's like, but it's the point of you've got to have that repeated grounded technique, right? So that's the
Yeah, yeah.
strategy. And then the magic is where you can really tap into that talent piece, right? Like, what does it set you apart? It's the insights that you have, the connection, the authenticity that you bring. It's that real world experience that shapes your lens looking different, right? Because if we think about strengths, I always describe strengths as like it's an 8-lane highway, and all of our highways look a little bit different because it's
Mm.
those talents. It's about your talent. Your talent is what you're born with, and everyone has talent. Now, for those of you who manage people in the workforce, maybe you're thinking some people didn't get talent when that was handed out, but everyone does have talent.
Last in line.
Right. I always have to give that caveat. If you think you're like, no, I've met someone, no, no,
Uh,
no, trust me, they have talent. But it's like
yeah.
that magic is the insight, the authenticity. It's what makes you you. And then the delusion is being delusional enough to believe that the strategy and the magic that you have is going to work. And one of my favorite quotes, I have like 10 rules that I live by, and I always said the next book I'll write will be more of a self-help book that's comedy. But I always say that, like, if you don't believe in yourself, no, why should anyone else? And I always think that, like, for anyone who watches RuPaul or familiar with RuPaul, like RuPaul always says, if you can't love yourself, or if you don't love yourself, how can you love someone else? But like at the bottom line is, like, if you don't believe in yourself, why should anyone else? And so I think that that's the delusion piece. So again, the strategy is the repeated grounded technique. The magic is what makes you you, what makes you different, the insights. And the delusion is being crazy enough to believe what you're doing is actually working. And I think that's probably the most important piece of it.
It's really the both combination of like bravery and creativity, right? Because like to create
Right.
anything new, to create rollerblades, what a crazy thought! Put wheels on your shoes, right? Like that was a delusional thought at one point, right? And you touched on two things. So know your strengths, know your audience, right? And I think a lot of coaches we often, I mean, as people, we compare to the others, right? I might have said this before, but when I started doing coaching, I get a lot of ads for well-being all of a sudden. My Google history changed, right? And I remember getting this one ad that was like keys to success. Follow, Tim Cook, whatever. And it's like, okay, he wakes up at 4 a.m. and his morning routine from 4 to 7. The world is quiet, blah, blah, blah. After reading this article, I was like, who cares what Tim Cook does unless you're Tim Cook? I'm not an 80-year-old billionaire, early bird. I'm a late 30s Latino Nighthawk, right? His 4 to 7 is my 11 to 1, right? And so, but we all have highways, to your point, just it's a little different combination. And everyone has a strength, right? Some will see me say, hey, I'm a big talker. I don't talk like you do. Go, people don't want a talker to be a coach all the time, right? Or they want this kind of energy. So it's knowing your audience. But what I also found, Stephen, was that like be open to who resonates with you as well. So like in my professional career, I've always been a kind of frankly more female, bigger population. So pediatrics, general peds, 80% female or something like that, right? I thought preschool for a year. I was the only male teacher there. Coaching is again very much skewed towards female, right? But I started working. One of my bigger niches is I coach adolescents. I get a lot of referrals from adolescent males, Latino adolescent males in Miami who want to work on communication, or emotion, or something like that, right? I didn't choose that, right? But people see that, and so we resonate. How would I had thought of that, right? Because again, I'm feeling such a world, but like, oh wait, in this population, this is resonating. And again, it's something I did different. I didn't decide to be born a Latino male, right? And so like there's things that about we all will resonate. Like I do long sessions, other coaches do short sessions. Good. You do your own thing. What's sustainable for you? And if you put yourself out there and have a little the right amount of delusion and strategy and
Yeah.
magic, that will happen. But I think it's delusion plus perseverance that keep on trying. Don't expect it to happen in 3 weeks, right? You have to continue doing it and really learn from this, right? It's not a
Yeah.
passive thing. It's not happen to you.
It's consistency. And that's the thing, is like it's more about consistency than perfection.
Mm,
Consistency is always greater than perfection. And because when you're
right.
looking, like if you're breaking down that goal, or if you're like, whether what no matter what it is that you do, keep doing it, because you never know
Mm,
like when that breakthrough is going to happen. And if you were to quit today, that's where you finish, right? Like if don't stop, don't give up for a minute, because if you do, that's where you finish. And like you may be that one more time from that breakthrough. And
yeah.
it's got to be about consistency. And yeah, I think that we just get caught up in our home heads, and it's like everything has to be perfect. But people don't want perfect. They want real life, they want human, they want the messiness, they want the human piece to it. And if you come in as a coach that's holier than thou, that never makes mistakes and has everything together, no one wants that. Like, it's like people want to be with someone that they relate to. They don't want to be demeaned because they've got this person who's like this like icon that never does anything wrong, because you can't relate to that. And it's like, and I have a Peloton. I love my Peloton. I use it like every day. Or maybe I shouldn't love the Peloton. I love the experience that I get from the Peloton. But
Nice.
like when you're looking at the Peloton instructors, like a lot of my friends have them. We always joke at like the instructors that I take are way different. Like if I'm riding on a if I'm riding Peloton bike, I'm riding with Cody, Ben, or Jess King, because I know it's going to be unhinged. The music's going to be good. They're going to curse and say inappropriate things. And like, that's how I love to start my day. But like, someone else may want somebody completely different. But the thing is like, you get, no matter what Peloton instructor you want, it's available to you right there.
Yeah, yeah. And see, as we're coming, you and I can definitely talk forever, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
can't wait to continue the conversations. But we have like about maybe five more minutes left here too. So, sorry, my chair almost gave out there. Let me recatch. Let me put that back in there. So as as we head to this new year, right? For all those people listening, like I always tell people, this is a time if you're a coach thinking of prior practice or like been trying to grow it. New Year's are the time to really people are looking for what we're doing. So, what some like if you can give maybe some, we have so much advice you gave and so much wisdom today, Stephen, but like what is like maybe a North Star that coaches can go into the new year to think about like how to really approach this in a new way, um, uh, and really get their authenticity out there? What could you tell coaches to prepare for in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I would say for one, first understand the fact that coaching doesn't just have to be in one-on-one segments. Like first realizing that. And if you're an established coach that does well in high ticket one-on-one or whatever it may be, do your thing, right? But for one, understand that coaching doesn't have to be the way that you've always done it. Open yourself to new opportunities. Two, take a self-assessment. We're thinking about like if you have an online presence, look at who your followers are and look at who your followers and your viewers are. And we're in the world of social media now, going into going into 2026, like your followers and your subscribers don't really matter that much anymore. It's more who your viewers are. And you were given that example about like who your niche market is versus who also wants to be coached by you. I was looking at some of my analytics the other day, and like it's interestingly enough, like my YouTube page, my my viewer and follower demographic is 80% male, but my TikTok is 80% female from the follower, but my viewers on TikTok are like 50-50. It's just interesting to see, like, take a self assessment of like, what is it that your strengths are, for one, understanding what your strengths are going in, but also if you have an online presence, whether it's a website or whatever, look at your analytics. Where are people clicking? Look at if you've got an email list serve, like look at all the things that you've got going and do an objective assessment of it.
Mm,
Yes, do a subjective self-assessment, but do an actual objective assessment of your presence, whether it's online or in person. The numbers, both qualitative and quantitative too. So again, understand that it doesn't have to be the way you've always done it. Two, take a self-assessment as you're going into the new year. And three is like set some intentions. And this is not only for coaches, but for individuals too. I am a very anti New Year's resolutioner. I used to
mm,
love New Year's resolutions, but started in 2017, I no longer have New Year's resolutions. But rather instead, I adopt the one word philosophy and I set a one word and set an intention for that new year. And
mm,
that's the mindset that I operate with. Now, the catch 22 is you have to be willing to accept that that intention may play out in different ways than you thought it
mm,
was going to be. And it goes back to that process piece that we talked about earlier. And like, when my one word for 2025 was harvest, and that
mm,
shaped out to be really doing the work, right? And it was doing the work in more ways than I own. Like I did my own kind of personal health and wellness journey this year too. And I turned 40 in February. So I wanted, my parents are having some health problems as they age. And like, I'm looking at like, now that I just turned 40, like doing the work was not only the work that we do like this, but also the personal work to mind, body, and
mm.
spirit. Um, and for me, my one word for 2026 has already picked me, and it's going to be momentum. And so it's kind of already landed, and I'm a little concerned about what momentum may look like because I was on
Runaway
the go
freight
quite a
train
bit.
has a momentum.
Yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but be careful, it may be another train. um, but yeah, those are kind of the things that I would say. The three things are like realize that it doesn't have to be the always. You don't have to do what you've always done. Two, take a subjective and objective assessment of yourself and what it is that you do. And three, set some intentions. Set some intentions and be open to what the universe has in store for you, because the universe always has your back, and I firmly believe that. And the universe can be whatever it is that you want it to be. It can be, like I read in the book one time, the universe, it can be the universe, God, or your psychic friend, Miss Cleo. I mean, it could be whatever you want to be, but just know that like the universe has your back.
Yeah. Steven, so much great advice and perspective. And let's have you back on later on. And to everyone listening, happy New Year's will be the last episode before the new year. We'll kick back off. And if I could add to that, because I can't help but add stuff too, the idea of you mentioned being able to adapt your strategies, not only the high ticket one-on-one. If you're not familiar with this term, look up price segmenting your audience, right? You don't have to only have this big package. You have multiple offers that both meet people where they're at, and you might learn from that, and people can work up that model. So if you're not familiar with that, think about price, segment to your audience, and keep the momentum going. I think coaching is about insight and for momentum. So think about for yourselves too, what insights you're getting and how can you move forward, get back up again. And one more here. If you're a solo coach, you don't have to be alone. Don't do it all yourself, right? Have a friend, have a colleague, go to our community on Viably. Like, if you don't love doing social, video editing, hire someone for that part. You are, just because you're the only sole owner doesn't mean it's all on you. You still have community and resources even as a solopreneur. So lean onto that the same way we recommend or suggest to our clients to do that. So thank you, Stephen, for being part of the Father community, right, and helping us out. To everyone listening, we do have a discount code for the end of the year because I've been podcast 20. You get 20% off the next 3 months of paid search after your 30-day free trial to get started. And again, thanks so much, Steven. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all in 2026 with some new, maybe key phrases versus resolutions.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, take care, everyone. Happy